Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. And if you are on the Canadian side, you're recovering from the July 1st Canada Day celebrations. And if you're on the US side, you're looking forward to the July 4th coming up. Stay tuned for today's coverage here on everything from wild stuff happening in Iran. So we're going to have one of the biggest funerals in the world being viewed. Could be one of the biggest weddings also coming up. Take a look at the stock markets, what it means to you, and some amazing reaction from politicians around the world about FIFA and the World Cup. Let's jump right away to the story that we have been covering, and even more so now, a Supreme Court ruling in the United States, Supreme Court ruling 6-3 to protect women and young girls from biological men competing in sports. Now, this is having a major effect. The ruling has worked its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. So now it does protect any team or community that wants to say that biological men cannot compete against women, calling themselves transgender. This upholds the right of groups and sporting groups and schools to actually say to biological men, you should compete in your own events, have some trans events, but you can't compete against girls and women anymore. Well, the California governor, Newsom, this could get very interesting because he's suggesting that his state may not follow a Supreme Court ruling. Usually it's Republicans who get accused of maybe thinking about not following the Supreme Court. In this case, it's Arch Democrat Newsom. Now, it's important to note that one out of 20, only 23 states, about half of the states, have specific legislation that allows transgender to compete against girls and women. So this is by far, this is not even close to like all states in the United States, even like all provinces in Canada being on the same page on this one. So this is going to get interesting. Let's just see how far Governor Newsom wants to go. His state in 2014 did bring in a bill to actually protect men. This is what's so very curious: protect men, bio men, from being prohibited against competing against women. And also, Governor Newsom has since 2014 appointed many judges who identify as trans related judges. So that's going to get very interesting. Another thing California did to kind of push back on an anticipated ruling like this, they have put in place for a couple of years now. The California Interscholastic Federation put in a ruling that said, okay, so if you have a bio man competing against girls or women, every woman in that event, when the event closes, will get bumped up by one place. So if a woman came third and there was a bio man who came first, she automatically, the woman who came third, gets bumped up into second place. If there was a bio man and he came first and a woman comes second, she gets bumped up into a tie for first place. Very interesting, the lengths that California is going to try and allow biological men to compete against women. We'll see where all of that goes. This will have an effect in Canada because Supreme Court rulings in the US, of course, are not a matter of strict jurisprudence in Canada, but because there's an increasingly, let's say, international look, this notion which some dispute called international law, because there is an increased effect of that, judges in other jurisdictions will watch this carefully. So we are watching that too. And for those of you who are viewing, I see there's more viewers just hopping on right now. You will see that I am not, in fact, in my office. I celebrated July 1st with family and loved ones, and that was at an undisclosed location. And I'm still, as you can see, not back in the home office. You can see by the beautiful skylight over my head, I am in an undisclosed location in a vehicle. That's where we are today. Well, talking about could be the most watched funeral in history, Ayatollah Khomeini, remember, he was killed back in February 28 with some of the bombing attacks on the nuclear facilities and other military facilities in Iran by the US. So he's been dead since February 28th. the funeral. They are going to have a funeral. Now, Islamic law, Sharia law, says you're not allowed to embalm somebody. So though he got bombed, he's not going to be embalmed. They say it's going to be interesting, put together pieces of him because a number of the people who were in the room that got hit by the bomb attack can only be identified by DNA. They think they have enough pieces left of Ayatollah Khomeini. There will be a public funeral. Whether or not he's been reconstructed is going to be interesting, but it's going to have gigantic coverage. It's supposed to be happening on July 9th. Remember, he was the leader of Iran for about 36 years, and they say that the Iranian regime will either force or allow and they're saying anywhere from 10 to 15 million Iranians will be at the funeral. And there's 14,000 journalists have already been accredited from around the world to be there. This is going to get huge coverage. And the theme of the funeral, Iran has already announced, is going to be called "We Must Avenge." We must avenge. So going to be fascinating on that. They are predicting viewers at least in the 20 million range, if not more, and representation from about 90 different countries. But interesting, no leader of any major country is going to be there. Prime Minister Modi was thought he might be there from India, but he has said no, he won't be there. And no other major leader, though they will send representatives. So we'll watch how that shows in kind of a Hollywood type event. Well, I'm talking about Hollywood. A number of stars have come out really slamming The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, because in an interview that he did recently with Esquire, he says that he does not believe in taking political positions. He believes he wants to be a creator and an artist and an actor, and that celebrities should more or less stay out of the public domain when it comes to political issues, though he did endorse President Biden, back in 2020 in his election. He says he's learned from that. He called that a mistake, and he's really getting Hollywood stars are jumping all over him, calling him a coward. And I don't know that I'd be wanting to call The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, a coward to his face, but it just shows how entrenched Hollywood is in terms of just the wild approach they take related to their own celebrities and whether they are speaking up or not. Hardly a free, liberal-minded approach coming from Hollywood. In San Diego, as we're looking at some of the things that are happening across the U.S., we had pretty well peaceful July 1st celebrations across Canada. San Diego has already announced that anybody who wants to be involved in their July 4th celebrations are going to have to sign an agreement that they agree with DEI policy, with diversity, equity, woke policy. They have to sign an agreement. They say they will not be doing an acknowledgement necessarily of the United States celebration, but they will be doing a number of land acknowledgements. And there will be 2 hours of stories from disaffected groups, people identified as disaffected. There will be 2 hours of stories coming from groups, be they First Nations or others. So the first 2 hours of their celebrations, be interesting to see if they're able to hold the crowd, how that works out. ESPN, of course, very much watched sports network. You've heard of Stephen A. Smith. He takes really hard lines related to, of course, supporting his fellow black entertainers and athletes, and people kind of looking with interest that he really attacked the LA Lakers basketball team. He says they've got too many whites, especially in the top echelons of the team. He says, how do they think they're ever going to win with they've got too many whites? Well, their top player happens to be Luka, if I'm pronouncing it right, Doncic, and he leads the NBA right now in points, 33.5 points per game. He's the lead, happens to be white. Stephen A. Smith doesn't seem to like that. Stephen A. Smith suggesting that whites genetically may be inferior. That also kind of flying a little bit in the overall NBA player who is Nikola Jokic. So I'm not sure how Stephen A. Smith is squaring that circle. It has been noticed that if a commentator had made comments related to uh, blacks and certain characteristics making them inferior, that would be the end of them right now. Stephen A. Smith, though, we do see Stephen A. Smith with these comments about whites really shouldn't be up there in the high ranking. He said the LA Lakers are never going to get anywhere. His show now is actually, compared to other ESPN ratings, his show, Stephen Smith's show, is dropping. I don't know if that's because he's decided to get political or not, but we'll wait, watch, and see. Well, President Trump, as I reported 2 days ago, has warned gas stations and gas retailers across the U.S., especially for the celebration of the 250th birthday of the U.S. on July 4th. He is warning and said, you better not be cranking up those gas prices, because oil prices, in fact, have come down since they've got things somewhat settled, not perfectly, in the Strait of Hormuz and over there by Iran. And one company in Philadelphia, which has 25 gas stations, call themselves Freedom Fuel, and they have made the commitment. They have lowered their prices. Very interesting to see what's going to be happening. The national average across the United States is about $3.80 a gallon right now. In California, with its crazy labyrinth of taxes and extra costs and regulations, $5.40 a gallon in California. Now, Canadians who are tuned in here may be wondering, what's that mean in terms of liters? Well, an average gallon, $3.80 right now. It'll change, but right now across the U.S., that equates to about 94 cents a liter. So Canadians quite used to seeing gas prices anywhere from $1.50 a liter up to $2 a liter. We would love to have that 94 cent a liter. Anyway, that's what's happening. Some response to President Trump telling gas stations to keep the price low. The big announcement for Canadians and Mexicans, of course, yesterday was the United States announcing they are not going to renew the U.S., Mexico, Canada free trade agreement. Now, that might sound like a stunning announcement, and oh my goodness, like, what does that mean? Is trade going to turn upside down right away today? No, actually, the U.S. Mexico Canada agreement is set to expire in 2036, and people might be saying, wow, that's a long way off. Why do these trade agreements stretch so long? Well, business and investment and investors need some sense of continuity. If someone's going to be building a factory, let's say, somebody's going to be expanding their operation, but with investing millions or billions of dollars, they need to know with some certainty that the trade regulations are going to be stable for a good number of years. So what's going to happen is, what the U.S. has said is they're not going to renew the overall agreement. But what will happen is, year to year, there will be reviews of some prices. So uncertainty being entered into the equation, the overall deal will be canceled by the year 2036. We'll see what happens to that. And that's definitely going to be an interesting time there. The Bank of America is in a bit of taking a bit of a different view of inflation, and is the United States going to head into a recession? Remember, all major predictors are saying Canada is headed into a recession. The Bank of America president, he has just predicted there will be three more hikes in terms of the federal rate. And that's got people a bit nervous. But the head of the Fed, the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh, he has just announced, and his prediction, looking at the stats, is there will be no recession in the United States. There's an indication that the present federal rate, that's the borrowing rate that goes to banks, is going to be about 3.5%. It's going to stay at around 3.5%, maybe go to 3.75. That means that's the lowest, that's the best rate a major institution can get when they are borrowing money. And that doesn't mean if you go and buy a car, you're going to get 3.5%. No, yours will be higher, but that's the base rate. And he says it's going to stay there. He is saying no recession. We'll see what happens there. Well, in terms of rates changing, FIFA, which, a lot of people wondered, the World Cup being in North America, primarily Canada, US, and Mexico, what kind of ratings would it have in countries which are maybe more attuned to football and hockey? FIFA TV ratings in the just released shows that of the top 10 rated viewing audiences and shows, 8 out of 10 of the top viewing platforms are showing that it's World Cup FIFA ratings that are at the top there. So no question that FIFA and that level of soccer is a major viewing event in North America. The political landscape, as we have predicted, keep watching for the Democrat Party in the United States to go increasingly and severely left. Mainstream media refuses so far to call them far left. Anybody who's a strong conservative is called far right, not just right or significant right. They refuse to use that label so far in the U.S. And we have yet another case. You'll be hearing more about this woman, Milat Kairos is her name. She just ran in a primary. Now remember, a primary, that's where the members of one party run against each other to see who will represent that person in the election that's coming up in November. So the Democrat primary, Milat Kairos was running against a long-established Democrat there for the honor of running again in November. She was running against Diana DeGette. Diana DeGette has had 15 terms. That's what you call an incumbent. 15 terms in Congress so far. Remember, in the U.S., they run every 2 years. So that's not 15 4-year terms. That's 15 2-year terms. A lot of people forget that. That's a lot of running. That's a lot of electioneering. They have to run every 2 years if they want to be in the House of Representatives. To run for Senate, remember, it's every 6 years, and that's done on a rotating basis. Anyway, Milat Kairos, relatively unknown, takes out the incumbent. Now, it's not that the incumbent wasn't far left enough. Diana DeGette, her voting record is significantly leftist, but we're going to see if the good people are going to vote for somebody even more far left. They certainly have announced that happening definitely in this race. We're going to watch that. By the way, Milat Kairos, who just won that primary, she's originally from Ethiopia. She's a graduate of Notre Dame University. And again, all of these very far left candidates that run under the banner, they're called the Democrats, but they run under the banner of Democrat Socialists of America. They all have some common, let's say, policy points in common. They want free medical for everybody. Free medical for everybody. That's going to be gigantic in terms of cost. We'll watch how that one goes. They also want free daycare for everybody. Everything possibly that you can get free, they say they're going to get for you. So that's one of the reasons they're getting elected. Of course, everything free means everybody eventually broke. Systems just don't work that way, but we'll see where it goes. And their other main policies is they will cancel the Department of Immigration. It's called ICE. These are the folks who deport people. These are the folks who make sure the borders are secure. They would shut down that whole department. And the other key feature is no American money going to Israel. So they've all got these things in common, and they seem to be picking up traction. Well, talk about traction. I said at the start of the broadcast, we talk about the most viewed funeral coming up. Well, the most viewed wedding in the world, or could be, is the one that has not been announced, but everybody says it's happening tomorrow. Yes, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. It does look like it's going to be Madison Square Gardens, but it's mostly stunning. I've received some commentary from viewers and listeners. They're saying, "Are you kind of vibing in a lot on Tay, on your good friend Tay? Is there something we should know?" Some people are even wondering if I've been invited to the wedding. I have not been invited. Neither Tay nor Travis has sent me an invitation. I'm just pointing out the fact that it is amazing that this could be one of the most watched weddings in history, most viewed, and yet they have not announced it. We'll see what happens. I'm predicting it for tomorrow, for Friday at Madison Square Gardens. And what a day, what a weekend it's going to be in New York. You might want to think twice if you're doing a visit to New York this weekend. Okay, you got the Tay and Travis wedding. Of course, that's going to be huge security and streets blocked everywhere. You've got a FIFA game coming up on the weekend. Of course, it's July 4th weekend and a heat wave predicted. If you're in New York City, you might want to think of a cooler space to be, but I wouldn't pick the top of the Empire State Building. If you watch the news on that amazing couple who climbed that, this is a well-known high climbing couple, I guess you could say, and he proposed to her way up on the top of the Empire State Building, if you want to check that out. So New York City getting tons of attraction. Canada's got its own heat waves. I love, and it's been hot, no question about that. Mainstream media loves to really emphasize these weather situations, whether it's heat or cold. Remember, we talk about the fact they don't talk about cold weather anymore in Canada. They talk about polar vortexes and things like that. And now we're not talking about heat waves anymore. They're called heat domes. These are heat domes, much to be feared. Not sure if, there's a lot of competing reports out right now in terms of is this sort of the regular wild nature of weather, or is this all because of the fact that we are contributing to environmental warming? That debate rages on, but going to be hot, going to stay hot. And today it's going to get hot in Alberta because the announcement that was supposed to come yesterday, July 1st, from the Premier of Alberta about a new pipeline was put off because the fact it was July 1st. Also, the Prime Minister is not able to make it to that announcement. He was going to be coming to Alberta, but it was the weather, truly, in Ottawa that kept him from flying out of there. And watch with the announcement today. There will be corresponding announcements, I predict, from groups who are opposing a pipeline from Alberta, which would bring life-saving, refined liquid natural gas to places around the world that are desperately in need, like India and China. But we'll see where that announcement goes. By the way, even the fireworks in Ottawa were canceled last night. That's rare. The other thing that got canceled, Canadians may know, and Americans would know too, about our famous snowbirds, the beautiful jet plane team that those pilots performing for years and years in Canada at major events, fantastic aeronautical display. It is their last season. They are going to be cratered, and this was going to be one of their last performances in Ottawa. That was also canceled, so feeling kind of sad for the folks there. Somebody we're not feeling sad for, we're feeling quite happy for, gentleman by the name of Lee Martin. You're going to hear more about him. They're calling him already the RoboCop. This is a veteran of the Vancouver Police Department and suffering from the debilitating ALS syndrome, he has lost all capacity to speak and to move. And Neuralink, which is one of Elon Musk's companies, has developed the ability for people to be able to move, even maybe speak, just by channeling their thoughts by a special implant into their brain, an electronic implant. And these are people who are they can't move at all. They can't even speak. But by thinking the thoughts, they're able to trigger certain mechanisms. They're able to operate their computers. They're able to operate their cell phones. It's an amazing one of the first in the world accomplishments like this, and it bodes well. This is, everybody talks about the negative effects of AI. One of the many positive effects of AI is revolutionizing health and health improvements at every level. So our congratulations go out to Lee Martin, the newest world RoboCop, and Neuralink for this incredible. They actually call it a form of telepathy because you use your brain. You actually just use your thoughts to create movement and help you to do things. There's a new study out called Beyond the Borders. It's a combination of University of Toronto and University of Calgary collaboration here, investigating and interviewing the thousands of Canadians who move to the United States each year. We hear a lot about Americans moving this way, but there's been an increase over the last several years of Canadians moving to the US. And in the study and the interviews, it's not a bit of a surprise. The authors of the study are saying it's not just for tax reasons. Many are moving there. Are you ready for this? Because of health care, because you can get needed health care immediately and you don't have to wait as you do in Canada for many procedures, whether it's hip replacements or knee replacements or even much needed surgery. And what they're finding, at least this is what these people are saying, where they're moving, when they move and they've got a job with a company there, that company, of course, covers healthcare. In the United States, it's often forgotten. Your healthcare costs are covered by the company you work with or for. So they're talking about healthcare, quick asset access, and quality of employment and quality of life. So that kind of flies in the face with the anti-American sentiment that is often churned out of Ottawa by the federal government. We'll see if this increased number of Canadians, if it continues to increase, moving to the US. There's a research journalist, she's well published. Her name is Kate Marland. She actually writes she's the deputy editor for an outlet called Without Diminishment. She does a lot in terms of women's studies. And through Cardis, the Cardis network in Canada, has produced a study showing that an increasing number of women, half of Canadian women now, are having fewer children and not happy with the fact they're having fewer children. Many suggested that they waited the biological clock, they waited too long, they would have wished to have more. So there's kind of a bit of a competing narrative going on with women who are wanting to find fulfillment and satisfaction in different ways. And in the past, where the so-called trad woman or trad wife kind of continue to look down on a bit negatively in media, that seems to be increasing in terms of women making that choice. And this study that's pointed out by Kate Marland talks about the burden and the challenge for women between what's called self-development, or it's a burden over whether you want achievement or whether you want fulfillment, and kind of suggesting that the two could be conflicting. The study points out to shows that were very strong 10 and 20 years ago, like Sex and the City or the show CEOs, and how people would identify with the different character, and how has had a major effect on the thinking of many women. 2024, she talks about a 2024 Pew Research poll, which shows that for 18 to 34-year-olds, men are more interested and wanting to be in a family and have children than women in that age group by 12% more. So interesting there in the long ongoing discussion of achievement over fulfillment. We'll see where that in fact goes, and it coincides with a study she presented at the recent ARC conference in London. That's the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. And coming out of there, the author, Arthur Brooks, who reports on these social trends, talks about the challenge between worship of self and care or others, or worship of self and worship of the divine or God in some form, and how that's seeming to be a bit of an issue in terms of which brings more fulfillment. Well, Pope Leo has just excommunicated a large number of Catholics. These are, as you would probably know if you're not a Catholic, just to say, within the Catholic religion, there are many societies under the Catholic banner. One of those is the Society of St. Pius X, and they have been traditionalists for quite a number of decades, really strongly adhering to. They think mass should just be conducted in Latin. They're opposed to some of the so-called modernization that the church has taken, and he's excommunicated them all, the whole bunch of them. That's thousands and thousands of Catholics now excommunicated because their bishops are in fact ordaining bishops without Pope Leo's permission. Now, back in 1988, they were first excommunicated, but in the year 2009, Pope Benedict repealed that excommunication and welcomed them back into the church and said, "Look, we've got our differences, but we shouldn't be excommunicating you." So they were welcomed back in, and now they've been punted out again. We'll see what and Pope Leo went on to say not only is he excommunicating all of the bishops and the society itself, but anybody who attends one of those masses. So this is going to, we'll watch and see if this develops into a major schism within the church and see where that goes. BBC has just reported that there are military, US military, Japanese military, and Australian military have been involved in joint exercises in the wilderness of Australia. And people are saying, what is that all about? Some are speculating this is a sign to China that there is a, alliance of sorts of US, Australia, and Japan. And is this a signal to China that China better back off, certainly in terms of looking towards Taiwan? We don't know where that's going to go, but very interesting development. Talking about Japan, by the way, Canadians will be interested to know that in the province or the prefecture of Tochi in Japan, if you're visiting Japan, which I highly recommend, a beautiful place to visit, the increase of bear attacks has shot right up, 13 deaths alone this year. That is ahead of Canada. Canada, which is sort of notorious, especially Western Canada, for its bear attacks. So the government of that particular province or prefecture, as it's called, is giving courses to citizens on how to deal with bears and how to protect yourself from bear attacks. I don't want to scare anybody off from visiting Japan, beautiful place to go, but watch out and maybe enroll in one of those programs. Well, South Korea is reacting in a very interesting way relative to the FIFA and the World Cup, because South Korea just lost, and they lost earlier in the competition than the citizens hoped. The citizens are very angry. Social media in South Korea, very upset, really lashing out at the players. And the president of South Korea, President Lee, he says he is in utter bewilderment that South Korea is out of the competition so soon. And as the team, and especially the coach, returns to South Korea, he has announced he's going to launch an investigation into why their team did so poorly. So we're hoping for Canada and Morocco against Morocco on July 4th, and the U.S. is also going to be hoping for their upcoming on Monday, the contest again against Belgium. Canada, by the way, and Morocco will be playing on Saturday in Houston, Texas, and we're hoping they do well. I don't think our Prime Minister will launch an investigation if we wind up losing. Well, I like to keep track of some of the things that are going on with Gen Z and also millennials, and there's an increasing move among young women, especially young women who seem to have money to spend, in terms of luxury, moving from luxury vehicles. This is in the Wall Street Journal today. Moving to buying older off-road SUVs like the Bronco, a recent Bronco. Now this is a vintage one, and obviously this isn't your usual young woman who's making an average salary. This purchase just went. This is an older Bronco, went for $125,000 because it's a vintage. But the trend is clearly there. There is a trend to young women buying older off-road SUVs. So interesting to see where that is going. Ruth Peacock over at the BBC is reporting the BBC is going to be, has just announced it's going to be doing an in-depth 4-part series into the history and the study of Jesus Christ. So it's long now been dispensed. People who would say that was Jesus Christ a historical figure? Well, of course he was, whether people are atheists or not. There's no question about the fact he lived and taught and died and resurrected from the dead is what we believe as Christians. So it's going to be interesting to watch this, as BBC, not usually a great embracer of religion. Let's see how they take a look at Jesus in their 4-part series coming up. Folks, thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.